They're going after the wrong thing, as we have gone after the wrong thing after we got equal opportunity in this country and laws passed to protect our citizenship and our rights of citizenship. We started celebrating, having a good time, playing, laughing, dancing, getting high, and we forgot what God have done for us over all these many generations. God has permitted us to be used and abused more than any other soul of a human being. God has permitted that soul of the African people, African American people, or the African people, to be used and abused. But the God that permits that is obligated to do justice by everything. So in the measure that He has allowed us to be deprived, He must award us, and at least that measure or greater. So when we look at the sad history, as those sad turns of events in our life, beginning with the first one, putting us upon slave ships and bringing us here to be slaves as property of others, and following that at the terrible events in our life, when we look at those events and see the damage to our psyche, the damage to our life as human beings, and the threat to our future as human beings, when we see that and realize that we have overcome that, we're still here, we're still human, and we still perform an very excellent way, men and women, that says to us that God has not yet finished rewarding us. God is not through with us. Freedom and equal opportunity here, that's just the necessary situation or the necessary condition for us to begin doing what God has formed us for. And I say formed us. We are no more Africans like the Africans of the continent of the motherland of Africa. We are new people. We have a new mind. We have a new spirit. We have new sensitivities as a people. We have a brand new ethos as a race. So we are different. We are different. We are different in the abstract picture, and we are different in the physical picture. We are not abstractly the same. That is, our mentality is different, spirit is different, sensitivity is different, aspirations different, humor different. We are not Africans anymore of the motherland. We are Africans of this land. New Africans. New Africans.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, amma ba'd. That is, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. All praise is due to Allah, that is God, Lord of all the worlds, all systems of knowledge. I bear witness that there is nothing deserving of worship except God, Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. The prayers and peace be upon him, and what follows of that excellent salute to our prophet. Assalamu Alaikum. My name is Ahmed Sabri. Welcome to New Africa Talks, a program dedicated to promoting the concept of New Africa. Imam W.D. Muhammad's vision for modern Muslim community life. This program is dedicated to and has as its focus the students of Imam W.D. Muhammad. And what we mean by student are those who accept Imam Muhammad as their leader and identify him as their teacher. Imam Muhammad, in his one of his talks, he said several things. He said, a student is an individual or an intellect that is willing to be taught. Another quote is, so we have many of you who are my students. You write down my talks. You try to get all you can get from me. and you take it and put it in your collections, and you make it the first among the reading materials. I know you do. You put nothing above it except Allah and His Messenger. I know that. And that is what you have to do. And that is what I have to have you do. I know you treasure it. You take it in and put it in with your collections. So this is what we mean by student, those who are sincere students of Imam Muhammad, those who are wanting to grasp Imam Muhammad's concepts so that we can establish the vision that he had for us for Muslim community life. Today's topic on New Africa Talks is what our future should look like, establishing model Muslim community life in America. And as our guests, we have members of the New Freedom Exchange Network. We have Imam Bilal Hassan, Sister Marcia Nivens, and Brother Mujahideen Muhammad. Before they come out, I want to read with our audience their profile, and so you can better be familiar with who they are. Imam Bilal Hassan was born to Muhammad and Aisha Hassan of Queens, New York. Bilal is a product of homeschool, where his mother was the first teacher from kindergarten to 6th grade. Much of Bilal's earlier foundation in good adab, understanding of Quran, early exposure at a young age to the tafsir, that is the commentary, of Imam W.D. Muhammad, radiallahu anhu, uswa of Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, community involvement and high academic standards can be accredited to the education he received from home by his mother and father. Bilal is a proud graduate of the Claire Muhammad School in Queens, class of 2010, and the first degree granting HBCU Lincoln University, class of 2014. Bilal is known as the community meteorologist on social media, former weather reporter for a New Day for Al-Islam in America, and Lincoln first ever full-time weather reporter for the radio and television station. As of recent, Bilal has worked mainly in the areas of environmental stewardship, environmental and climate justice, and citizen science, engaging communities across the New York City tri-state area. Bilal's career in environmental stewardship took off while at Lincoln when he chartered the Environmental Science Club back on campus, appointed to the University Sustainability Board, and chosen to represent as a Toyota Green Ambassador. He has served several years in AmeriCrop programs with the AmeriCorps programs with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection and New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. Imam Bilal Hassan is currently the executive director at New Freedom Exchange, the digital community engagement arm of New Freedom Works, Inc. He is responsible for providing social and sacred commentary, content development, booking of special guests, and social media management. A lot of work. We have as our other guest, Sister Marcia Nivens. Sister Marcia Nivens is the programs director at New Freedom Exchange, the digital community engagement arm of New Freedom Works. She is responsible for research, planning, development, and implementation of the organization's goals. Marcia is a native of New Jersey, of the city of New Jersey, and a dedicated attendee of Masjid Muhammad in Newark. Upon completing her undergraduate studies in business administration at Howard University. She furthered her education, obtaining a master's degree in public administration from Seton Hall University. While completing her graduate studies, Marcia was introduced to Al-Islam and inspired to take her Shahada in 2008. She has spent much of her career life in leadership roles at local nonprofit organizations and is the founding director at the Early Childhood Institute, principal at Claire Muhammad School at Masjid Muhammad, Newark, and grants manager for North Hudson Community Action Corporation. She is the proud mother of 3 intelligent daughters and a passionate advocate for community development in the Muslim community. And lastly, we have our brother Mujahideen Muhammad. Imam W.D. Muhammad is a student of Al-Islam. I think there's a typo. Imam Mujahideen Muhammad is a student of Al-Islam under the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad, and has always had strong desire to share knowledge and guidance to all. He was a student of the Sister Claire Muhammad School in Newark, New Jersey, and the Islamic Day School of Philadelphia. He graduated from Burlington County Institute of Technology in 2022. In addition, he is an entrepreneur, community activist, and community organizer. Imam Muhammad traveled to Rome in October 2008 as Muslim American ambassador to the Folklore movement. In his community, he has been a mentor with the Big Brothers organization, a Boy Scout leader, and a counselor for PAL, that's Police Athletic League. He also volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club. He was a coordinator and moderator of the Youth Forum in 2006 and 2007 with the W.D. Muhammad Dawah Committee. In 2010, Imam Muhammad participated in the Messiah College Outreach Program in the Humanities course, a coach of NFL junior flag football and soccer, an archivist and tourist. Imam Mujahideen, it keeps being a typo. Imam Mujahideen is a former board member of the Urban Peace League, which sponsored week-long peace summits and Stop the Violence rallies in Philadelphia. A former board member of Masjidullah and Quranic studies teacher at Madrasa. He is president of the You're a Creator movement. He participated at Harrisburg World Affairs Council Peace Summit in 2014. Associate project developer of ICPIC New Africa Center, a founder and community developer of the ICPIC New Freedom Direct. Imam Mujahideen Muhammad is founder and president at New Freedom Exchange, the digital community engagement arm of New Freedom Works Incorporated. He is committed and passionate about working to improve the community for his children and all children in the world. Alhamdulillah. So, without further delay, we'd like to introduce to New Africa Talks the members of New Freedom Exchange, Brother Mujahideen, Sister Nivens, Sister big introduction.
I had to.
Alhamdulillah. We're glad to have y'all in our program. They're doing a lot of works individually and collectively, so we're glad to share that with our audience. The reason why we wanted to have the program, again, repeating the title, What Our Future Should Look Like, Establishing Model Muslim Community Life in America, because we were closing on the year 2021, about to enter the year 2022 on the Gregorian calendar. And we wanted to start that year, or in this year, with a focus on the future. We're all here of the next generation of Muslims, and this is where our minds should be focused on. The community is the future. So before we begin, we would like you each to tell us something about yourselves, personal, aside from your the profile we read, very extensive, about yourselves, and give us something personal about yourself that you'd like to share with the audience. It could be goals and something that we don't know. How about you, Bilal?
Well, Assalamu Alaikum, everyone. Thank New Africa Talks, New Africa Intelligentsia for inviting us on. Something I would say something that's interesting about me. I've been also playing chess since I was 8 years old as well. So, and Dean did beat me in chess a couple weeks ago. So don't worry.
Actually, not just if you're gonna say it right. I wasn't gonna say that, but you know.
Lucky. I'm not gonna go there.
I got pictures.
Yes.
That's very good. My sons played chess at this school, Promise Academy.
Okay.
Chess is very important.
Yes.
Helps you to think. Yeah. What you, Sister Marcia?
Assalamu Alaikum. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm hanging out with the boys today. Everybody with the fellas. I'm hanging out with the fellas. But I mean, I guess besides the intro, I'm a big proponent for education. So I think that's one of the things that wasn't mentioned in the bio. I have a love and a respect for our Clara Muhammad schools, and I would love to see them just revive in a big way. We have some good models out there, but the things that we have that are before us, and I know we'll get into the conversation about, you know, the future of us. But when I think about something else that maybe, you know, wasn't mentioned, it would be that education piece, just having a passion for that for us. And yeah, I think that's about it. My kids think I'm crazy. That wasn't in the bio, but but that makes for a really good time in my household. But no, I'm just joking. But education probably would be something else about me that wasn't mentioned.
Okay.
I was gonna say creative, but who am I? But
I'm a little creative.
For me, I would say I'm an archivist. I heard you kind of made it seem like I was archaic.
Yeah. There are a lot of typos. I
don't know who did that.
Muhammad. I'm like, oh, we got to do Muhammad. That's what it was.
I'll take the WD. We definitely claim that. We definitely claim our inheritance. So yeah. One thing that wasn't mentioned there, like if anything, I'm a professional. I'm a driver. Like I mean, I'm the 1,000,000-mile man. Like I drove well over. I kind of clock my miles, but I'm trying to reach 1,000,000 miles. So like right now, I'm maybe almost halfway there. Yeah. But I've drove a lot, so I'm a driver.
I
professional.
Well, I guess I want to begin with y'all on here, who are the next generation, and your workers in the community. You're not just sitting around and you're not wondering. How did y'all get your? Before I get into that, how did y'all get your? How did y'all come together as new Freedom Network? Like what brought y'all together?
Who's telling the story?
Marcia, you say it so well, but
I'm gonna tell my part of the story. I'm gonna let Mujahideen start the story off, and then I'm gonna interject with my pieces of the truth.
Okay. So once upon a time, not long ago. No, so what happened was, as far as this group, we'll have our full story. We actually are having we like double, triple book this whole week. This is, we call this New Freedom Forum Week. We started yesterday with Imam Bilal in Baltimore with the Juma. Today with New Africa Talks. Tomorrow we'll be with Marcia Al-Iman Unified Talim, and then we have some other events going into the first Friday of January. So look at our platform for that. But how we came together as a platform, as far as New Freedom Exchange, it started off with a response to a call. So I got a call. I just became, well, not just became Imam, but I was an Imam, resident Imam in New Jersey for about 6 months at this time, maybe more. And
what year was this?
This is 2019. 2019 is when I first met Sister Marcia. We were planning, because I was the Imam in Trenton, I was representing my community at the Council of Imams of New Jersey State Conference Committee. And Sister Marcia was there, and I first met her there sometime in December, I think, of 2019. Because I think COVID came not too far after that, the conference committee decided to postpone. But me and Marcia still was building. We had the Youth and Education Committee, and we would meet every Monday. I got a call from a brother who knew my works as Imam, and then now, as in this position of the conference, saying that they want to hear from the next generation, similar to like what you reached out to me or Hakeem reached out to us. People want to hear about the next generation. So they see young people doing things. So they want to hear from the young people that's doing things about other young people, because maybe the older generation may not be aware of. So that's how the original invitation came to me, to invite me on to Blog Talk Radio on station IWDM by Brother Khalid Islam and Imam Sahir Al-Amin and Brother Imam Jihad, Sadiq Jihad. And so from there, we started on Blog Talk. He said, whatever you want, whatever day you want, however long you need, it's up to you. Decide what you want to do for the next generation. We want to hear from you all. I had a dear sister that was, I was talking with, so I was like, Assalamu Alaikum, and then I'll let her.
Yeah, okay. Let me put my pieces in there, okay? Now, I'm a little animated, so this ain't gonna be just all cut and dry like he was just telling it. No, but so as he said, we were meeting once a week to put together what was going to be the youth and education component of that New Jersey State Conference, and COVID hit. And so when he got the invitation, he said, would you be interested? I think he might have texted me, like, would I be interested in turning our meeting into a show, a radio show on Blog Talk Radio? And I'm like, no.
I mean, the sister was dropped. Her other nickname is the Wise Lady. She's
Say
the
it
Wise
again?
Lady. I said her other nickname is the Wise Lady. So she was dropping a lot of gems. I wasn't trying to be selfish.
He didn't find out about the Wise Lady till later. So initially, he asked me, and I was like, no, sir, I'm scared. No way. And he asked a couple of more times, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm nervous. Oh, 5 more times? Okay, couple, 5, who's counting, right? So I was just like, okay, I'm going to try it. Let's just do the first show and let's see what happens. And when I tell y'all, after that first show, like I was hooked. I was souped up. I was so souped up. It was such a great show. It was like this was something that I was like, destined to be doing, and it was never anything, on my list of things to do. I did not have aspirations at all to do anybody's radio show, anybody's podcast, or anything like that. But alhamdulillah, we started to host a show on Blog Talk Radio on Monday evenings at 7, and we covered a wealth of topics, and one of those shows happened to be a show that we had Imam Bilal Hassan on as a guest. So I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah, so Mujahideen Muhammad had reached out to me during COVID, the height of COVID. I had came up with the idea of the concept of the masjid stimulus challenge, because we know there were stimulus checks given to individuals and their families, but there wasn't no stimulation for the masajids. And, in our way of life, we encourage to give zakat to the masajid, or even sadaqah, which is extra, to our places of worship. So it was during Ramadan where I took the time out to initiate the challenge, upon which we highlighted 30 masajids in our association across the country, and encourage people to send their donations to those masajids across the country. So that is how I initially got introduced to New Freedom Exchange through Blog Talk Radio, and then from there it was just like Mujahideen was like, "Yo, we have something here. Guys want to keep it going." I was just like, "Yeah, I mean, like, let's keep it going." Like, and since then it's been, alhamdulillah, it's been off to the races, man.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I just want to say y'all doing a very excellent job for our community, particularly for the next generation, keeping us informed, about what's going on throughout the community. That being said, the focus on community, where is a general question? Each take their time to answer it, because I want to get everyone's own perspective. As a community, we are a community beginning with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad up to present day. Imam Muhammad, in 1975, Imam Muhammad's passing, and it's 2021. As a community, from your perspective and your workings within the community, where do you see us now? Like, where are we now? And where do you see us in the next years to come? I mean, let's say within the next 5. I mean, years is down the road. We know that, but like, really, some things you can get tangibly see. But currently, what is our state, and what is the projection of our state of the community? And it doesn't.
I want to start this conversation off because I was thinking about this earlier, just in preparation for the show. Like, our community, our future, where we are now, where we're going. And so if I had to give an analysis of where we are now, I would say we're in a beautiful spot. And the reason that I say that is because I think as a community, we recognize where we came from, what we had, where we dropped the ball, and what needs to be done going into the future to gain our rightful position as Muslims in our respective communities and in the world, right? We talk about Islam and we say how it's a model for all of humanity. I think that the generations that are coming behind the pioneers are waking up to understand that if we don't do something, it will die. It won't go into the future. And so we've got to take what we've learned from our past, from us going out into our respective places in society, whether it's your workplace, whether it's on an education front, but take those things that we've acquired along the way to help to push this thing forward. And that's where I feel like we are. I feel like enough of us have gone out there and not only received our education, well, before we've gone out there, we received our education from, our Muslim community, but then we've gone out into the world and gathered some other pieces of information that can help to move it forward. And now we're in a spot where we can marry the two and do some really big things. So when we talk about the next 5 years, for me, I think big and I see big and all of that. And it just is what it is. So, I see our schools coming back to life. I see Muslim businesses coming back to life and in a different way, right? So there are models for education and business and government. And we talk about the 4 birds. There are models for that we've seen in the past. But because we're moving into the future, because things have changed, because there are new ways of doing things, technology is a big thing for us now. I just see it being that much more and that much better with the tools and the resources that we have. So, I just see people looking at Muslims and al-Islam as a model for society, and nobody can change that vision for me, because that's just how I see it. And whatever it is that I can do and the people that are connected to me can do, I just throw my whole self into it so that it can come to life. And I think that there are a lot of people in our Muslim community, Imam W.D. Muhammad community, that are of that same passion, right? That have that same drive and that same passion. And people would like you to believe that, nothing's happening out there, and nobody's doing anything, or it's gonna die, and so many people have left the fold. But the people that I'm connected to and that I choose to connect myself to, right, those people see it differently and see it bigger. And so as long as you stay connected to those people and those visions, then the sky's the limit.
Alhamdulillah, concur.
Bismillah. I want to say that we are in an in-between period of time, an in-between period of time. And we have the tools necessary to carry out the mission or the blueprint that was left by the New Africa blueprint that was left by Imam Muhammad, which was a continuation of an expansion. I want to use that word better yet. The expansion of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had, which was the Muhammad's economic blueprint that everyone talks about, those people talk about a lot. And it was just expanded upon. It's the same concept of us applying do for self. You understand what I'm saying? Us taking care of our own and in kind, taking care of our own communities and those in our communities, and making sure we're providing the necessities, the daily necessities that we all need to function. So I would say that we're in a state of flux. There's nothing wrong with being in a state of flux. Sometimes, we have to be reminded of our inheritance, what we inherited, which is something very special that we inherited. We have to be reminded, and these reminders of traveling across the country like we're doing now. And we was talk about that before, Akbid, in the pregame, that in our travels, in our short travels, we're seeing that there's a lot of opportunities, and that people are concerned and ready to work, not just concerned, but also ready to work, and are working on in our community to do things in their particular locales across the country. And I have to echo what Sister Marcia said too about the company that we choose to keep. If we keep company that's negative, then you're gonna get stinky, what they call stinking thinking. Stinky thinking. It's always going to be pessimistic. It's always going to be negative. But then you have people who are optimistic about what time we're living in. What opportunities are there for us to really make a difference in all of the facets that we have of life, and really make an impact. So I think we're in a state of flux where we have to go back and be reminded of where we came from, how far we came from, what we have accomplished in that time frame, and looking at what the Imam laid out for us in his 30 odd years of leadership, with us and being present with us, and seeing how we can take that and actually apply it to the situations and the circumstances that we find our people in right now. And when I say our people, I'm not just talking about those who identify in the community of Imam Muhammad, but also those who this the African American community in general. Because to be honest, a lot of our family members and friends, they may not be practicing Muslims. They don't identify as Muslim, period. What about them? When we provide necessities for us, it's for us, but it's also providing necessities for the greater community at large. So, but it starts with us first. And I think we're in a very opportune space to really take advantage of everything that's out there right now with the Quran, with the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the tafsir of Imam Muhammad. I think we're at good advantage. You know what I'm saying? And we need to play to that, you know, and not second guess our experience, not forget where we came from, and not second guess ourselves that we can accomplish this, and leave off the distractions, because there's a lot of distractions out here in our community and outside the community that is attempting to throw us off course. We got to leave that alone and really focus on the now and the future.
Okay. Shukran. Mujahideen.
Alhamdulillah. Since we are in this time, today, a special day for those of the people of the book who are celebrating this day, and also because it's very, a lot of people are, you know, either enjoying themselves with their family and also watching the game. So I'm going to use a little game analogy. We're at halftime, right? For those who are in the work, we're at halftime. But then there's some who have not started the work. They're probably in like preseason training, right? And then you have some that's like they're at the buzzer, right? They got to do the buzzer beat or they're going to be out. And then you got some that's in overtime, right? So all these different stages of a game, of any average game, our community is in that same state. And then as regards to, you know, our faith, you know, this day being the blessed, commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ, or what we would say the human innocence, when the prophet upon him made the transition. So now if we go back in our faith, the prophet made the transition from Mecca to Medina because of the conditioning of his own people being boycotted. Imam Bilal reminded us that of that yesterday in the khutbah, that transitional period of being attacked because of what you're standing for is not being embraced by the populace in the society. You have options, you have decisions to make. And in those decisions that you're going to make, you're going to lose some lives, you're going to lose some families and friends and wealth, right? And so we're at that moment as well. I think that's the overall state of our community, those who know and accept this responsibility of our community. We're in a state now we could make the transition. Some, as we know in the history, some made the early migration. Those who were less fortunate, they made the early migration, and that the protection of the Christian king allowed them to have protection there. Some didn't make it, some waited to the second migration and then got success in another land, right? And so it is with our communities, right? We haven't been able to maybe be as successful as we wanted to be with our masjids and our efforts in our schools, but there are people, as both of my colleagues just mentioned, that are inviting what we have. And it's up to us to decide. We're at decision-making time. Like, you have to make a decision if you want it to grow further.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I agree with everything, all your perspectives. And I think that when we look at, I think that the COVID, the time of COVID, that was a time for reflection for a lot of people. I think that was like a paradigm shift for a lot of people, because it sat people down, made people have to be still. I remember, I forgot where I read it, but the term scholar, it means, or comes from the word, I think it's Greek, I'm not sure, but it means to be still. And so it's saying in order to be a thinking person, scholastic person, you have to sit still. You can't think and run and play at the same time. So it means to be still. And that was a period for people to reflect on their life, relationships, visions, plans they had, to rethink, think over their plans. And that period really, I think, helped in a lot of ways our community and the young people. And there's a lot of activity going on. And it's just, and some people just not, are just not making it known until the right time. And that's wisdom, because the prophet, praise and peace be upon him, told us that to be silent with our plans, you know, with a lot of our plans, because you right away you have people want to destroy it or critique it before it's even completed. Like Shaitan critiqued Adam before he was even finished being completed. But I think of that is the right perspective. I mean, I'd say the not the right perspective. That's how I personally assess it as well. What do you envision as the future? Like, what are we seeing that will do you see more presence, more fruition of establishments of our community and understand the vision of Imam Muhammad.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Oh, go ahead, Bilal. I'll let you go.
Yes. Case in point, when we was in Baltimore, we met several of the young brothers who are on the board of trustees for the masjid. They're around my age, a little younger than me. I went to college with one of the brothers. Right. He's like 25, 26, and he's on the board. He films the Jummah, he tapes the Jummah, and then he's on the board. He introduced me to another brother who's like 25, 26, who's also on the board for the masjid. So that already gives me hope, and not just hope, but it already shows me a sign like, all right, there are people stepping up. There are brothers and sisters stepping up into those positions. And with those fresh minds, the masjid is going to change over. When I mean by change over, it's not just going to be a place that, we just pray at. It's going to turn into what the Imam envisioned the masjid to be, and what the Prophet established was a community center. The masjid, the Prophet's mosque that was built in Medina, was identified as a community center. Community center. This is the Sunnah. This what exactly is the language that was used at that time to describe the place of worship. It wasn't just a place of worship. They established that, and that was the anchor. And then out of the anchor, they spread it out. And I see that happening. I really do. I really see that happening in business right now. There's a lot of African-American young Muslim brothers and sisters from this community and older who have successful businesses. I see those expanding. I see more mentorship for our young men expanding as well. With programs coming out from the South as well. We're familiar with some people who was doing work in that area for our young brothers to get them up to speed, and to protect them. And the same thing for the sisters. There's programs coming out for the sisters to get them ready and up to speed, and protect them. So I just see more of the intergenerational experience happening. I see that happening. I see it's starting to occur now between the young and the old getting together and actually putting away the so-called, or addressing the generation gap, and then moving forward. Once the generation gap is addressed, we're propelling forward. And the only way we're going to do that is, like you said, Ahmed, what the scholar is, it comes from the word listen, to be still. We got to listen to each other. We got to be still in order to hear where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Okay, how can we mesh the two together? That's where I see us going.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I definitely see more establishment in our communities, right? I feel like enough time has passed where we've done the things that our communities need for other people, right? We've been the director of somebody else's program. We've, led somebody else's mission and somebody else's charge, and we know how to do it, right? That, we know how to run the schools and run the businesses and operate in the governmental sphere and economic sphere under the leadership of other people, right? Whether it's city government, private business, some public establishment. We've done it for other people. And I think that we're moving into a space where, and this is not just for me, yes, I see this for the Muslim community, but as Bilal was saying earlier, I see it in the African American community as a whole, right? We've done those things for people for so long that we're coming to the realization of, I can do this. I can do this for myself and my people and for the benefit of the people and the communities that I love. And some of that fear that used to exist, I feel has dissipated for a lot of people. And as you mentioned, probably COVID was a catalyst for that, right? Because it was just like you had to sit still, as you said, you had to sit still and figure out, who am I? What do I want? There's so much death around me. Time is running out. I've got to do something, and it's got to be in alignment with who I say I am. Mm-hmm. And so when you ask a question about, do you see establishment? Yes, I see it. I see us being the providers of the things that our communities need, right? When we talk about social services, community development, education. We've participated in those sectors of the community under someone else's charge for so long that we've acquired those skills. And I feel like so many of us are now motivated to take what we've acquired, make it our own, and be the provider of those things rather than the consumers. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited. And even in my excitement, I don't have I'm never one to be thinking that I know it all. I know the things that I know, but I don't know it all. But I'm willing, right? Some of that fear that used to exist, even for me personally, has dissipated to where it's just like, all right, it's me and you, Allah. I'm gonna take the step, and I'm trusting you for the next. But I just see us doing things to where people are like, because we do that, right? We do that for other people. We're just like, oh, the Jews run all this, and this run all of that, and they run. And I just see people looking at the Muslims and even African Americans and just being like, man, like, look what they're doing. This is awesome. And even us looking at ourselves and being proud and being grateful to Allah for being able to turn a situation around. Mm-hmm. So when Mujahideen talked about that halftime, for some of us, we were at halftime, it's like being at the end of the game and being like, man, like it looked like we was about to lose, but look what we were able to do. So that's what I see.
Sixers, my bad. Sixers.
Before you get your comment, I just wanted to remind us that Imam Muhammad told us that we're living in the end of days, and how Scripture says it'll be a great and dreadful day. But Imam Muhammad explained that what it's saying is great and dreadful, that the two will be coexisting at the same time. Usually we read it as like this overwhelmingly great and dreadful. No, he's saying great things will be happening and dreadful things will be happening simultaneously. But at the end result, the great thing will win out. I just shared on Facebook where Allah talks about how the righteous will inherit the earth. And the Bible says, and the meek shall inherit the earth. So many are thinking some, and that's the benefit of getting what I would say the higher reading or the correct reading of Scripture is that you see things through different lenses. There are some people who are seeing things in the society because the only thing that's being shown are like negative things, like looks like the world is ending. So people are still afraid of COVID, meaning like it's so much popularity of COVID and fear of COVID. Watch this, that your hopes might be dampened. But the believer understand that it's just a phase before the greatness. Those who understand it's not, we're not. Those who understand, and students remember how we're not expecting the calamity of the earth, the physical material body to be destroyed. We're expecting and are witnessing the end of man's world, the world that he created, and Allah bringing in what he wants for his creation. So just wanted to add that. So the believers always have to stay up in that frame mode to see the world correctly. But I'd like to hear your comments, Mujahideen.
Yeah, right in line with that. Actually, I was thinking the same thing. We do say COVID, but as a believer, when we say anything a catastrophe, we say, Allah is responsible, right? So while some people may look at it as just a pandemic, others a plandemic, right? But we know that Allah, whoever plans in this society or any society, Allah uses it for the betterment of all of us, right? And so for me, I think how it looks is how it looked before, right? If we connect to our heritage as a people on this soil, out of slavery, out of Reconstruction, we developed society, we developed communities, right? And so while we attribute a lot of African American or Black Muslim presence to Elijah Muhammad, we know that W.D. Farad, who came up with the ideology, that group of people who had that strategy to present al-Islam to those people who was mistreated, downtrodden, and out of the mainstream of the development of this country and where it was going, if we tap back into that history, we will see also that it's a natural projection, that if you stick with the guidance that Allah has blessed us with, we also will have the same thing every other people have, even the world over. I mean, the Christian world themselves was in the dark period, right? And then they accepted, the new advancement of science and so forth and so on. So if we're a human society, we're going to get the same benefits that other human beings have gotten. We're in a special time now because we have all of that behind us. I mean, there are people now, especially as Sister Marcia about education, they're condensing all of our history into like 7 to 8 phases, right? The big history and all these other, concepts of looking at the world over. We have access to that on our phone. And so it's like we could go in any time period of our human existence and extract from the lessons that was learned. And then we have the Quran on top of that. So there's no way we should be pessimistic or whatever the one is to be down. We definitely should be on the up and the up.
I think too, to add to that, we're less inclined to allow someone to tell us and to tell our children that we weren't great. And I think that's part of it too, right? There's so many different things that are happening in the space that we are in now, and us getting to what we say, the future, is that the pioneers and those who came before us, right? I admire them because they were operating in a time frame where the society around them supported this ideology that we didn't contribute in a big way. We were less than, we couldn't, we wouldn't. And now that we're in this space where, the average person couldn't just come up to me or to you all and say that, you can't, you won't, you're not capable, your people can't contribute, nor did they ever contribute. Like, we know now, right? The cover has been taken off, the blinders are off. So that sort of is fueling the progress as well, because it's just like, oh no, like, I'm woke now. Like, I know who I am, and I know who the people that are connected to me were. Whatever story you had or continue to have in your mind and your heart and all of that, I know who I am, where I came from, that it's great, and that I also have that greatness in me. So let's go.
Very true. I'm thinking about one thing. I want the audience to know that you can at this time text any comments or questions you'd like for the panel to address at this time. I'm looking at how the various areas with regards to the future that I'd like to have us comment on, because we want to deal with all areas of our life moving into 2022. And I do just want to say that and acknowledge some of the comments y'all been making with regards to like what we're seeing in our community, that is those in the Association of Imam Muhammad, but in the broader African American community, which is what this platform focuses on. We're seeing, it seems to me like I grew up in the 80s, 90s, where the rap, hip hop, there was a consciousness when there was a phase when it started with the gold chains, but then more as we became more conscious and people began reading, they took off the gold. It was kind of frowned on to wear gold, and people were wearing the Africa medallions, the leather Africa medallions, the Public Enemies and the Chuck D's and KRS-Ones were coming out. So
I was about to say, don't forget KRS-One.
And Rakim. So
Miss Melody, all them.
I believe we're having a renaissance of that. It's slow in the hip hop, but you can't, particularly since the murder of George Floyd, that kind of woke people up to the realities of the situation, and that you had to have a consciousness. And people are beginning to say things in their lyrics, and if they're not saying something, they at least know you have to now do something for your community. It's no longer cool to just not have something, not to just wear this or wear that. And so I think we're entering this renaissance of consciousness as a people, and I don't think this is going to die. I think it's only going to go forward and get bigger and bigger. There's interest in this is the era in all the community where it's no more talking, it's doing. No one wants to really. You can't just talk anymore. You have to be producing something. What I want to do right now is to get into more detail in terms of the different areas of our community life, and talk about the areas that make up the community, or what a community is, in order for us to establish community. So, with regards to health in our community, what are your thoughts about the health in our community? What are you seeing, and what do we need to do to improve it, to keep where it's going, or just make a certain awareness about the health, mental and mental health, and as well as the physical health of our community?
So like we were just discussing, in that COVID sort of motivated some things. I definitely feel like COVID was a motivator in this health realm. Everyone was, wanting to be at an optimal state of health, whether it was, the type of nutrition that you were taking in, or whether or not you were subscribing to, some homeopathic, type of health regimen. I think that we're having more conversations about it, right? And that's important. I wouldn't necessarily say that we arrived, and I can't necessarily tell you on what part of the spectrum we are in terms of the community and health, but the fact that there is more conversation about it is always a good sign for it to get to a better place.
Right.
And again, in this time and space, COVID definitely has been a driving force in that. And suppose you get COVID and your health is in a terrible state, then you're more susceptible to negative outcomes. So you've got to do something a little different. And then there's always this, and I think COVID sort of, I hate to keep having this COVID conversation, but it really did motivate. It pushed a lot of people to, start to look at where we were in these different areas, and to see if we were on empty versus, how far we were to full.
Right.
But just figuring out, should I do this versus should I do that? What do we believe about this versus what do we believe about that in terms of health? The conversation is happening.
Yeah.
And for me right now, that's big, because sometimes we shy away from, the way you eat is not beneficial to you. The fact that you don't move around enough is not beneficial to you. We just want to love on people, and we want to love on people just because that's who we are as people. And then we don't want to have the conversation about, sis, you really need to think about, the type of food you're eating. The weight is not helpful to whatever it is that you say you ascribe to, what you want to do in your future, how you want to maneuver through this life, even with our belief, and sometimes those kinds of conversations, they're hard pills to swallow for people, because it's just like, well, if you're a person of faith, right, and you're a person of excellence, So we'll just take it from that standpoint. You're a person of excellence, right? Then you got to be that person of excellence, not just when it comes to education. The goal is to be the person of excellence when it comes to education, when it comes to health, when it comes to government, when it, how you maneuver in your community, how you are with your children, how you educate yourself spiritually or religiously. It has to be across the board.
Right.
And I feel like we've been having more of those hard conversations than we've had in the past, at least from my standpoint. And so that's always a good sign to get us to a better place. And then you talked about it a little bit in terms of we're in this space of like, you got to do something, right? You have to be about who you say you are, right? So you just can't tell me that, I'm this learned person and I'm this and I'm that and I'm the third. And then I look at your actions and they're opposite. Because now we're like, okay, we ain't messing with him. Okay, we ain't messing with this, that kind of thing. So we're in that space, and that health piece comes right to it when we start to say, well, you said you had told me that you were, operating in this space. Well, that don't really marry with this. Right. So that all boils down to we're having conversations about it, and I think that that's a good thing. And I think we just need to remain honest with each other, and pull each other up on those areas where we are, where our tanks are empty.
Right. I agree. Mujahideen, any comments about the health?
I'm gonna put some resources in the chat, so that'll help out.
Has anyone commented? I can't see if anyone's commented or not.
No, we did put the number. We do have a number. This will be the first time we'll try it out. If somebody did want to call in or text in, that is our NFX number.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting.
Bilal?
I want to say that I agree that this tumultuous time, calamity that we are facing as a people, as a community, as the world is changing and is turning as we speak. It's not because it's because of being still too that people are realizing that there are a lot of other issues that we have not addressed, that we have left alone on the table. Health and nutrition is not a new thing in the African American, or new issue in the African American community. That's been an issue in the African American community, as something that is constantly addressed as far as our nutrition, and as far as our emotions in terms of exercising and getting out there to do those things to watch what we put into our bodies, right? And then the mental health piece is tied to also what we're eating, what I'm saying, and how we eat, and how we are not, if we're moving around, or the lack of mobility on our part plays a role in our mental health. The tumultuous time has exacerbated the mental health crisis in our communities. Also, the domestic violence piece has also been exacerbated as well, because people are still and are forced to stay basically at home, or basically in one spot. So those were issues that came up as well. My point is that we're dropping names here of we keep talking about the disease, but there's also a disease that's affecting us as a spirit, as well, which comes out in our health. It comes out in our mental health. If we're not having a strong spiritual and moral foundation or anchor, it's going to have a domino effect on how we are thinking with our mental health, and what we're putting into our bodies. It's easy to go into a slump, in a physical slump and a mental slump, but when we have someone to support system, a brother or a sister, to remind you of, hey, maybe you need to seek someone professional, or maybe you don't need to seek someone professional. Maybe you just need someone else to talk to, a good friend, or a family member, if that's applicable. And just a reminder for us as Muslims that we have the Quran, we have the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he carried himself. And I have to say that, I think, for myself personally, that I think COVID, also allowed, or this disease has allowed, me to do some reflections on my health and my family's health history. Both sides of my parents, we suffer from heart conditions, high blood pressure, stress, all these different things that I don't really want to go down that road. You know what I'm saying? And we want to be able to identify, hey, we don't want to go down that road. So how do we transition ourselves, knowing that, hey, maybe our parent generation made some mistakes with health and nutrition and mental health. Okay, we acknowledge that. Okay, how do we transition now with the fact that we have so much information now than they did? You know what I'm saying? And access to information now than they did during this time. And I do have to say that hip hop's first health store is, Pharmacy for Life. I just purchased my black seed oil from them, from Styles P and his wife. They have this chain, and it's and there's just one. And then there's the Calabash, who my friend from Howard, he works at down in DC, which is another health and wellness store. And then we try to support these African-American owned businesses who are exposing our people, or re-exposing our people, to the importance of black seed oil, the elderberry, all these herbs that, we've gone, this from Allah's given to us. Allah's given to us for a reason. Like, hey, this is what this is good for. You know what I'm saying? And my last point, this disease has kind of helped to push our health professionals and mental health professionals to the forefront. And that's where they need to stay at. They need to be on the forefront for our communities. Right. We need to see more from them. We need to demand more from them, to publish more for our community, to research more for our community, to step up. They have stepped up, but we want to request more of our professionals in those areas to stay tight to our communities and to give back more of their time to our communities. So we want them to stay where they are and not go anywhere after the disease is over.
Right. So like every mass year, every school in our association, that's what the call out. Like each mass year could reach out to the professionals in their community who's in the health field and formulate a committee and produce these things that we all need that will benefit not just ourselves as a community, but also the general society.
And just to add to that mental health piece, I didn't really talk too much about it, and I'm glad that Bilal went into it. He mentioned the access to the information, and I think that that's key, right? Because I'm thinking about just me growing up, right? Me growing up in the hood, all that great stuff, right? You were quick to call somebody crazy, like, because that was just easy. It was just easy to be like, she crazy, he crazy, and not really gain an understanding of what that person was dealing with in terms of their mental health, and really having an understanding of that's a real condition, dis-ease, right? And then obviously for us as people of faith, we know that disease thing goes deeper than just, I've got some kind of ailment. No, you're off balance. We talk about being a balanced people, something's off balance. But I think because we have access to more information around mental health, that we're now more likely to seek treatment. Mm-hmm. We're now more open to talk about it, because now I'm not the pariah that's crazy. I am the individual who is struggling with being bipolar. For whatever reasons come behind that, I'm now that person, rather than, oh, she's just crazy, and every now and again she has a mental breakdown. We're doing less of that, and I think that's a good thing.
Right, alhamdulillah. And I just want to, at this time, want to think about and really be grateful to Allah for the history that we come from under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because in the Muhammad Speaks, one of the things that he was always calling for and had pictures and beautiful drawings of were hospitals. He's one of the first Black leaders who was saying that we need hospitals, mental hospitals, as well as the typical hospital, because of our mental state. And it's now in this era, because a lot of the rappers and entertainers who are African American are speaking about it and openly that they sought mental therapy, that is becoming more acceptable now. We have the clinical psychologist, Dr. Joy DeGruy, who's been talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome and has been addressing it in such a way that in a professional way where it could be more tangible. But we've been addressing this since the beginning of our community's conception, that we have to address the mental state of the African American people. So it's just this is, again, a beautiful time. A lot of times popular media doesn't show you a lot of the good things that's going on because it focuses on sensationalism. But you have to look with a fine-tooth comb to find what is good. But a lot of good is going on in this time. And I believe more. I'm only expecting greater things happening next year and the following year and the following year and the following year, no matter what's put up. Even if they say we got to close down again because of COVID, that's just another time to think, to regroup again. It doesn't matter, but nothing's stopping the plan of Allah. Did you have a contribution you want to say, Mujahideen?
Oh, mental health? No, mental health.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm gonna take one more second on Mujahideen's piece. I just want to say this last piece.
Yeah.
We are people. All people have a capacity, right? It's just like a cup. If you pour too much into that cup, it's going to overflow. So and the sun is all in my face right now, but if we put too much in, there's going to be a result from it that people would like to call something. But all mental health is making sure that you're taking care of yourself in a way to where you operate within your capacity. Period.
Alhamdulillah. I want to say that at this time, again, we're talking about how beautiful this time is because of access to information. Again, that to me, the access to information is like fire. Fire is good if used properly, it's bad if misused. So you just got to know how to use it. But in this day and time, we don't have excuses anymore for not being informed. We have to be willing to be informed. And I'm saying that just to say, now because of the internet, access to the internet, we have the ability to be more informed about Al-Islam. And there are classes that are going on throughout the entire Muslim community regarding, because if you wanted to learn Arabic, there's no excuse anymore. You just have to be willing to put yourself in a class, sit down and learn. That's what's going on, and particularly in our community, we have classes going on in our community from the students who are in Imam Muhammad's class, Imam Dawa's class, Imam Rashad Abdul Rahman, Imam Muhammad's wife, Khadija Siddiq Muhammad, and I'm not sure if there's others, but and even those who weren't in that particular class, we have classes going on throughout the community and even outside. This is the time to learn and to become more informed about Al-Islam, our religion. And now, because again, with the internet, you'll be able to we were talking about mental health. You can meet with a mental health doctor online, not even having to go into the office. So it could be even more private. So this is just really a beautiful time, a wonderful time. And that's the spirit we need to have in going into the next year. As I said, I'm going to focus on specific topics that we want to address or talk about, discuss, flesh out, that make up the community that we're looking for. So we talked about our mental health, physical health. We want to talk a little bit about business and the need for it, what we're doing about it, And what we're seeing regarding business, as Imam said, we need more business life. So either you can speak to that topic from whatever angle you want to address it from.
So I like to start it off. So in terms of business, you know, right now I feel like anybody and everyone who has an idea is at least taking a shot at it, right? And it's inspiring because people who, you know, you normally would count out, or, you know, because they don't have a formal business education, or, you know, that kind of history behind them, you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be thriving the way they are. But there are people who are just like, listen, I have this idea. I've seen someone else on YouTube do it. I've seen somebody on Pinterest. Like, we're watching it. We're watching it happen. And it's motivating other people to do the same. And it's really, really, for me, exciting to watch, because then you sit back and you're like, well, dang, if she's doing it, I can do it. Or if he's doing it, I can do it. And when you hear the stories of how a lot of these ventures like came from like nothing, you know, they came from nothing. They were home-based operations, you know, of just regular people, you know, your neighbor next door, your cousin in the town over, like real, humble beginnings. The second piece to that is that it's important for us to take those chances on ourselves. I think that is an extension of our faith, right? So you can't tell me that the God that you serve is so great, but he's not great enough to help you succeed in this thing that you want to see come to life. So when we talk about business and people stepping into that realm, it you have to have a certain level of faith to take it from its infancy to it thriving in the greater sphere of, you know, business in the community. And then the last piece to that is that those businesses help to fuel our communities. I know as Muslims, you know, when we talk about business, that business piece also gets connected to how the masjids thrive. Well, if that's the model, then even outside of religion, and we're just talking about the greater African American community, then those businesses help your community to thrive and to present a different picture for those in the community, particularly our children, right? They're looking at what's around them. And when they see what's around them in that business sphere and how their communities operate, it's sending all sorts of messages to them about what it is they can and cannot do as they grow and develop. So for those of us who take those steps to enter into business and whatever it is our gifts and talents are, just know that responsibility is not to be taken lightly, because that's how our communities change. That's how they grow. That's how they thrive. And we're not just succeeding for ourselves. We're succeeding for the things that we're connected to. And for me, in particular, that I'm always passionate about, that the piece that we're connected to first and foremost, especially us as, you know, parents, are our children, right? So they're seeing people right now. There's such a big conversation about this generational wealth. And so taking that step and taking that chance on yourself and taking that leap of faith into business does so many things that you've got to at least attempt. because it now opens the door for the community that you look around you and say, oh my God, there's so many, there's this vacant lot. These houses are abandoned. There's no Black businesses. Well, guess what? If you become the first, there will be a second, third, fourth, and fifth. Sometimes people just need to see the model. And so my plea, I guess, and just know too, like when I say these things, I'm talking to myself first, like because I got to hear what I'm saying. I have businesses inside of me, in my mind and in my heart, and
she definitely does.
I definitely do. And so when I'm speaking like this, it's because I know it's the truth, but I'm also preaching to myself to say, girl, stop playing. You can do it. You got this, that kind of thing. But it's bigger than business for getting yourself out of whatever situation you're in or wanting to be rich. It's bigger than that. If you assume the responsibility, and that business now takes your family from where you are to where you want to be, but it also opens your children up to some possibilities that they didn't see before, and children that are just looking in general. And it leaves an option for your community to be that much greater than what it is right now. We don't all have to go into business, get rich, and leave.
Right.
That doesn't always have to be the trajectory. Sometimes you can stay and
Right.
make what's here that much greater.
Before I have your comment, I just want to say that yes, I agree with much of what you're saying, and that the mindset is. I remember MC Light, the rapper. She said that was MC Light. No, it might have been Roxanne Sante. I can't remember, but she had said that the thing now is not to like to move, like to leave the block. It's now to buy the block. So that's the mindset of a lot of people now. Particularly like since even like Nipsey Hussle,
Mm-hmm.
who was doing a lot for to empower his community economically. And I just wanted to mention and to note that, and disagreeing with what Marcia said regarding even if you don't have, because everyone is not going to be a business person. Everyone's going to get on Shark Tank and have ideas and stuff like that. But what you can do, which still helps the cause, is to dedicate yourself and to contribute and purchase from people in the community. Like that's the word I'm looking for. Commit yourself to supporting quote unquote Black businesses, like We Buy Black, a company created by Sharif Abdul Malik, who's in our community. They have a lot of businesses that are online. It's kind of like, for lack of a better expression, the Black Amazon. So commit yourself to purchasing things from We Buy Black, so so the African American dollar, excuse me, can circulate, several times. There's another company. This just was coming to my head. Athletically Black. I think that's what it's called. Athletically Black, and it's a sports company. It's where kind of like Under Armour, but it's made by African Americans. It's it's called Actively Black. Actively Black. You should check it out. I think Romeo Master P's son is involved in that somehow. I saw if you go to the website, several artists are supporting that sports brand. So again, if you can't produce, if you don't think you have anything, start up a business, or you just don't want to, at least support an African American business. Bilal?
Yeah, so I like to build just a little bit on that point, Ahmed, that you're making in reference to supporting our businesses. I think that's crucial because we have so many businesses now. You name some. Obviously, we can name more. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing my school's alma mater on my chest, but this was made by an actual alum. He has a business. He just don't make he makes school para and anything else that you need. Mujahideen got Moses the Comics from Philadelphia, his Superman shirt, but it's not just Superman, it's Muslim, it's super Muslim. Muslim. You know, it's sending a message. It's sending a message. It's also sending messages to is dawah, and it's sending message due to the culture, due to fashion, right? So, but our point is, you know, when we make our travels, even as a platform, as a team, wherever we go, we try to identify, okay, what's on the ground, who's here, you know, what businesses do we want to stop by and support, and try to highlight them, which we'll be doing more of that on the Prosperity Exchange, which is the other another platform that we have here to highlight more of the African American owned and African American Muslim owned businesses throughout the community, and we want to give them like some airtime to do that. So that'll be coming in 2022. But my point is that there are so many efforts to support. Find some efforts to support. Identify some businesses in your community that's local to your area and support them. If there are businesses that need supporting in terms of capital, this is the point I would like to get at: capital. You know, we have not-for-profits, we have for-profit institutions, and there is discussion about, I have this idea, but I need capital to raise the money. And access to capital in the African American community is hard. And this is coming from people that we know personally that, case in point, this sister who I know is opening up the first ever shared African American shared kitchen in Southeast Jamaica, Queens. It's called the Essential Kitchen. She put up $80,000 of her own money to fund the project, you know, $80,000 of her own money, and barely got maybe a couple thousand on the crowdsourcing from the actual community itself. And this is something that I implore us to explore more of how we can, I'm not saying I have the answer to it, but explore more of how we can solve capital, you know, and help projects like that. There should be no reason why people like 50 Cent, El Cool J, grew up in the neighborhood, couldn't cut a check. They could cut a check for $2 million. It's easy money. But that onus is not on them. The onus is on the community. You know, they have a responsibility, but the responsibility falls back on us as the people of how we can support each other to get capital for projects like that to be funded. To whereas this individual, she doesn't want to go to someone else and ask them for capital. She doesn't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? And she shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to do that, you know? So it's like, what can we do? And I think maybe perhaps we should form a consortium of those businesses, those who successful business people in our community who can we make the call out, we form the coalition, and those people, we identify projects in each of our states, where projects across the cities, and we fund those projects. Everyone gets together, put some money into the pot, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, people can take money from the pot to do those type of projects. So therefore, they're not having to go to someone else to get capital. So it's just an idea, but something we should think about.
Jahideen?
Yeah, it's more than an idea, it's an industry, right? And I'm gonna just answer my question. I'm gonna put this question up. I'll give my comment in connection with this question here. What has second and third generation Muslims learned that we should keep and that which we should not keep as a community going forward? And so in connection to what we're discussing in regards of business, as Bilal and Sister Marcia just mentioned, I mean, we have to apply the pressure. We have to apply the pressure to ourselves. We have to apply the pressure those in our network, and we have to apply the pressure to those who have more, right? I'm around a lot of older people. They're not afraid to ask you what they need, right? Sometimes we get a little pride and we don't ask. Though we know in the Quran, Allah says, give to those who ask and don't ask, but everybody's not functioning on that principle, right? So as second, third generation, we have to ask, whether in private or in public. And so sometimes when we come on this platform, you hear us, you know, we're sharing, but we're also asking. Sister Marcia, like I said, we're asking you, it's a charge. And then also in private. The other thing is a quick statistic I was looking up as we were talking. There are over 21 million millionaires, according to what I just researched. 21 million millionaires in America alone. 21 million millionaires. 80% of those millionaires are first generation. So that means within the last 20 to 30 years, 16 plus million people became millionaires. So we're at a time not just for business among us as African American Muslims who has a history of black businesses in our community, but also in the world. We have a global economy, and which is a $90 trillion industry worldwide. And there are Muslim nations, they have a share of that GDP. We as a community have to start formulating ourselves and developing and channeling our energy to also be a part of that, right? Because everybody's talking about a seat at the table, a piece of the pie. Well, you have to operate as that. You can't expect to get the results of people who operate a certain way if you're not going to operate a certain way just because you have faith, just because you say something, right? And so we're taking a responsibility ourselves, not just to have this type of thinking and share this message, but also to build these systems, these infrastructures to establish what we need to establish to get the benefit of what everybody else getting the benefit of people coming over here. And they said, if you want to be a millionaire, come to America. And it's evident in the numbers.
And I appreciate you saying that, Mujahideen, because I was thinking, I was like, oh, I hope I get another turn to talk about it, because the other thing is that the business people, as you're articulating now, the business people have a responsibility as well. So we talk about the community having a responsibility to support, but the business people have a responsibility in that we have to be conscious of establishing firm businesses. And when I say firm businesses, I mean like it needs to be a registered entity. It needs to operate just like every other business in the community operates. It can't be, at least for longevity's sake, it can't be this fly by night, I got an idea and I want to make it happen tomorrow. Like if we're talking about that whole generational wealth and buying back the block and those types of things, then the businesses that we establish have to be established in a way that ensures longevity, but also honors the commitment that the community makes to us, whether it's supporting buying our product or investing in what we're doing. We can't, we have to be a full-fledged establishment if we're going to reach back into the people that are supporting us for that additional support. Because then that means that we're not, if we don't do that, then we're not honoring their contribution.
Alhamdulillah.
And real quick, second part to the question about what things as Muslim second, third generation, fortunately I might be around fourth generation, Muslims learned from the previous generation is that we can't envy each other, right? There's so much going on that some people don't want to help somebody out or give the plug because somebody else won't get the benefit of the result, right? And so like we can't envy each other. We have to be true brothers and true sisters. Because when Bilal told me about this sister, though she's not quote unquote our community, though quote unquote not Muslim, all this and that, $80K, and she only raised by a group 6,000. He said 1,000. It was 6,000. It blew me away because it's like, you know, and that it was a whole lot. But so just it's like we have as a people, we can't be selfish. We can't be, you know, envious of each other. Because if we are truly a community, then as the Prophet said, we're like a body. One part hurts, all of us should be affected and respond. So
and it's enough for everybody to eat. We just, our mind just tells us it's not, but it's enough. It's a lot of people out here doing a lot of great things, you know. And if all of those people are doing it, what makes you think that if, you know, one more gets it, that it's not going to be enough? It's just not true.
As Allah says, do not neglect your share of the material world. So Allah has given, if there's a human being on the earth, then Allah created a share for them. It's just up to us to go get it. You know.
Yes. Can I just answer Imam Mikhail Sahir's question? Also, I think another important factor here that I think we want to avoid moving forward as a generation is that as the generations go, is that this personal / political quarrels, you know, I would call them beefs, but quarrels or disputes or whatever have you, whatever word you want to use, synonym that you want to use to describe it, because I just think that's as generations get older and older. I mean, as generations come they coming in, is that a lot of them don't know what the heck we're talking about. Like I noticed, like as we sat at the table, with people around my age or younger, they don't know anything about that, about all of those things that someone who's been battling over that for 30, 40, 50-year-old battle over who wants to be this, who wants to be that. And just like people want to work. There's some people that want to work. Some people who they just came into Al-Islam. They don't know. They just starting to learn. We don't want to discourage our communities over things that we could have handled better in terms of communication. We could have sat down at the table, which we still can do, is sit down at the table and hash those things out instead of just leaving it on the table, and then you keep putting it out there as an issue when this very well can be discussed either in the public or in the private or both. And that's just something that I just feel as a generation we don't want to keep with that, because it's tampering. It can hamper efforts that way, and we can need to get around and get by those personal quarrels, and because nobody wants to deal with that no more.
I want to contribute to that in answering the question before I move on to my next. And that is, like, what should we keep in our community, and what should we leave behind? One of the things I think we should keep is the strong support for our leader, Imam W.D. Muhammad, his commentary, his vision for Al-Islam. Because there are a lot of ideology. America is a big place, and Muslims come from all over the Muslim world with ideas and persuasions of Al-Islam, and they have because they've had Al-Islam for so many generations, they have their culture mixed in with the religion, and so when they teach, we think we're taking on the religion of Al-Islam, but we're also taking on a culture. So what we should keep as a community is Imam Muhammad's leadership, his example of moral character, which is missing in the Muslim world. The preserving his legacy, preserving his knowledge, putting out more books for the qualified ones of us I say qualified because not everyone's qualified to produce books by Imam Muhammad. And you can be hurting his leadership and rather than helping. So those who do want to help those who know how to do those books and things of that nature. But keep that. We should not be weak in our support for Imam Muhammad or fearful in our support for Imam Muhammad. I'm talking to this generation, the next generation, and in fact, join classes by students of Imam Muhammad to learn more about Imam Muhammad's commentary of the Quran, so that you have a better appreciation for your own history and Al-Islam in general. And secondly, what we should leave behind is something Imam Muhammad also told us, the Imams. He told the Imams, because we're not going anywhere without leadership, educated leadership. Imam Muhammad said, he told the Imams that every Imam in his association should bring with them or find at least 2 young men in your community who's of the mindset that's interested in Al-Islam, because everyone isn't interested, doesn't have that level of interest in terms of teaching the religion, or who has that type of personality, but like the Jews do. They look in the community for one who exudes that characteristic, who's a thinker, who shows concern for the community. So they should find young men, at least 2, and begin to share with them the knowledge of this community, the history of this community. I'm saying along with the Islamic knowledge, but the spirit for the community, and begin to let those young brothers educate them. Do start off by letting them do ta'aleems, and then when they're qualified enough, do Juma khutbahs. But this is what we want to see. We want to see the next generation, because our generation, most of the imams are past 60. And we are all going to return. And we're all going back to the ground. So we don't want to happen what has happened to some communities, where when the imam passed away, someone from another understanding came to the masjid and took the community somewhere else. So that's what we want to leave behind. We want to leave behind that thinking that we're unfortunately, like many, again, one thing we have to learn from Imam Muhammad is that he talked about us like we're African Americans. And as Muslim African Americans, we suffer not as to the same extent, because minus the Caucasian image of God that's haunting our mind, but we suffer from the post-traumatic slave syndrome. So whatever ails the African American community, the Black community affects us. And one of the things, there's a book we all know of called the Willie Lynch theory, where it said that one of the ways to control the slave, keep a slave, is to pit the older slave against the younger slave against the older slave. And so they constantly fight each other, and this stagnates the growth. In a normal and healthy society, the older male, he wants to leave his generation to the next male. He feeds him the knowledge. He gives him what he needs, support, so because he knows he's going to die. So he gives him what he needs and is proud of the younger male to inherit his family, the community. So we want to do the same, but that's the mentality we have. We don't want that mentality, and we see that in the churches. A lot of times the pastor wants to die at the podium, and some imams have that thinking. So we want to leave those negative things. But what I would like to see in the future, next year, 2022, I would like to see, and it should become popular, that imams in our association, we should see new faces along with these imams, that they're found young brothers in the community that they're educating. And if the imams themselves don't have enough education, send them to some of the classes that are online from the imams that are in our association to learn Al-Islam, so that they can teach and preach and invite people to Al-Islam. We're closing. We're coming to a
before you transition. Can we also have? I know Marcia is considered technically a first generation Muslim. She has children second generation. Yes. It would be also, I think, beneficial to the community if we can hear also maybe her response in regards to what have you learned from the previous.
Okay.
Sure. And I'll make it quick. So in terms of the what to keep, I would say that sense of community. I feel like for those who have been carrying the banner of Al-Islam from our community, you get a real sense of community from them, from our pioneers, that is not necessarily always apparent in the younger generation. So I would definitely say to keep that model of this tight-knit community. And then in terms of the stuff, what shouldn't move forward, I would agree with Bilal in that those year-old beefs. Let's just let those things go. As he was articulating that, I was thinking, that was my experience, and that I would hear these certain stories, and I'm just like I wasn't in the community when these things were happening. I don't even know who half these people are, nor do I care about this old fight or who did what or I don't care. And so I would say keep that sense of community. It's a beautiful thing to see amongst our pioneers, and it's inspiring for anybody coming behind you all. But for moving forward, we agree to disagree and keep the work pushing.
So what we have to do as a community is have the people work in their places. Very, very important. Work here in your places. So the community is made up of various people. It's not just an imam. It's not just the masjid. It's not just the business people. it's a plethora of people. So working in your places, if we work in our places, then we can get things done. If everybody's trying to shove themselves into one thing, then we're going to be imbalanced. The Quran says we are a balanced community. We are closing, but I want to conclude, and maybe go a little bit past the time. We usually want to close at 4, but
we'll give you the new freedom pass. Since we all on here.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. We keep going.
Thank you. But this will be the last question, which is really the foundation of the it's the foundation of community life.
Mm-hmm.
The foundation of community life is marriage, husband and wife, even before we get to family. And I remember in the Imam Rashad's class, we were talking about like what is like the most important relationship in Al-Islam. And most people might think of mother and child, but that's not. The most important relationship is the first relationship, husband and wife. Because you don't get mother and child or father and child without husband and wife. So we know that if we don't have healthy marriage in our community, in the African American community and within the community, this specific community, all these things we're talking about is a waste of time. Marriage is a critical thing in the Black community. I see improvement, but it needs to be a lot more. So with regard to that topic, what comments do you have for our community in closing to encourage and just to really just put light on the institution of marriage, its importance, and even like where you see it and what needs to happen for us to have better marriages in our community, to encourage marriage, and to have that community life moving to the future.
Okay, Bismillah. Know yourself. Know yourself. Know who you are. Know what you're looking for. If you're not married, know what you're looking for. If you are active in the community, you're participating in the various community efforts and initiatives, then you'll probably find easier time finding someone with a like-minded spirit and like-minded nature that you can mate with, right? And I think too, I believe that once we solidify our these marriages, and for those who are married, stay married. At least try to stay married. I know divorce is it's an option, but it's not something that we prefer. It's not a preference that we all should be. Okay, let's do this. It's not working out. The first argument that we have, let's file divorce. That's not realistic. Yes, and it shouldn't be an option that we do that. Nowadays, for those who are married and those who are looking, there are counseling services, premarital courses available. There are counseling services available for those who need to stay married within our community. Try to stay married. Try to seek those resources from those people with the skill. Not all imams can do this. Let's go back to that. And they shouldn't have to do all this. That's why you have professionals who go to school, who get trained, who get certified to do X, Y, and Z. For those who are looking to get married, we were speaking to a brother down in Baltimore yesterday. We were working on a program for certifying walis, to get walis certified, to have a protection service available for the sisters, sort of like with AAA, where if a sister car breaks down or a sister has an issue in the community, that here's a hotline you can call. Is a reputable brother that can respond. You understand what I'm saying? To those type of issues and concerns that may pop up. So we'll be working on that for 2022, and look out for that. But yeah, get married. I mean,
can't hear you.
Yeah, your sound went out, big.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone's calling me. See, the people buzzing me. Healthy marriages are important.
Potential.
It might be that sister, man.
Might be the sister.
I'm
Might be the
saying.
sister. We need that. We need that sister right about now. So, inshallah, that's one of my personal goals. I answered the answer to the question before. Yes, that's one of my personal goals to get married in 2022. Inshallah. So that is the goal. But yes, let's get married. Let's encourage healthy marriages. Encourage men, especially men, to step up into their responsibilities to get married. To respect the marriage institution as an institution in Islam is very important, and to highlight those who are already married as an examples for those to follow, especially those who are striving and living a healthy married family life. Those brothers should be highlighted, and sisters should be highlighted throughout the community and given a platform to, because we're visual people. It goes back to, again, the culture. We're visual people. We're seeing dysfunctional families on TV, and that's being promoted on TV. That's being promoted in music. Then that's what our children are going to be seeing. That's what we're going to be seeing. It's going to affect us all. So once we get in the habit of promoting those images that are positive, and then I do see the paradigm shifting more towards healthy marriages.
Okay. Good. You want to go, Mujahideen?
We can go at the same time.
Okay. No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Okay. So, first and foremost, let me say this: marriage is important. I'm gonna say it again. Marriage is important. I'm gonna just do it 3 times for the sunnah, right? Marriage is important. We should all be striving to get married if we're not married. Marriage provides a certain balance that is so hard for me to explain to you right now, but I know it's real. I've been married before, and so I know that experience. And so I'm gonna throw myself on the sword for y'all right now. I'm not married right now, and that's not to. And so I started it off by saying that marriage was important. That way, when I got to the point of saying that I'm not married, right, that I didn't want it to overshadow that I do believe that marriage is important. Just how we talked about having those conversations and having some space and some room in our community for having those conversations about health, we also have to have that space and room in our communities to talk about marriage is important for those who are divorced to have that space and that room for the healing to happen, and then for the remarriage to go towards that space as well. Because I feel like we can't have this conversation in its totality with just saying, get married, get married, get married. It's important, and not be real and say, some of us experience some trauma. Some of us have been through some things that aren't easy to come out of. And so there has to be room for that. But always having as the foundation that marriage is important, it creates a level of balance in your life that is indescribable. Because it is. It's an imbalance, right? So whether you like that term or not, whether you feeling what I'm saying or not, the truth is that, at in the point of not being married, there's a certain level of imbalance, right? We operate with certain criteria as people of faith. And I don't care if you tell me you're Christian, you're Muslim, you're Jewish. We operate in a space where we have criteria for our way of life. And in all of those 3 that I just mentioned, marriage is a part of it. And so if we have a certain perception of marriage that's negative, then we're not working the system by which we say that we believe, right? We're not operating with the mentality of, my faith teaches this. Wherever I am in my walk, I still know that marriage is important and it creates balance, not just for me, my household, my children, but for the greater society. So marriage is important. We should be striving to get married if we're not married, but we should also have space and room to have candid conversation and solution-based conversation for those who've been married and are trying to get to the place of being married again, but having to sift through traumas because it's a real thing for us.
Alhamdulillah. I want to say before Jahadeen speaks, this is because I don't want us to keep on too long, but I do want to thank you for the time. But
I might want to take it back now.
No, but the one what I want to mention, because this is such an important topic, marriage, which is our foundation, something that our prophet, prayer and peace be upon him, told us. This is for the audience that's listening, just some advice. There's more I'm going to say after Jahadeen speaks, but that is he said, marry those closest to you. Marry those closest to you. That's one of the key advices that the prophet gave. And Imam Muhammad, in commenting on that topic, he said what the prophet was saying was marry those who you have most in common with in all aspects. One of the reasons my wife and I work is because we're very similar. They're not that different in terms of personality, not too outgoing, not too shy. We for each other. We're a good combination. And a lot of times marriage is the reason why it doesn't work is because when you marry, we particularly coming from the African American community, we our houses are broken. And I think it's percentage like 80% single parent homes, I think. Maybe might even the 70s. But so we don't get a chance to see mommy and daddy, which is our first example of a relationship. So because you see either just with your mother or just with your father, you have to figure out what is marriage about. So one thing that just key advice which helped me in my life is the prophet's advice, which is marry those closest to you. And I was watching this show that used to come on. I just passed by it, but it was a show called I think it was Atlanta Preachers or something like that. Preachers of Atlanta. And one of the preachers, it was a reality show. That one of the preachers, he was being consulted with he was seeking counsel from another preacher. And one of the preachers told him, which I'm saying this because it falls right in line with the prophet. He told the preacher who was having a problem with his wife, or someone who was going to be his wife, he said, too much compromise in a marriage is not good. Too much compromise. And what do you mean? When 90 or 80% of everything you do, you have to compromise on, that means you don't have a lot in common. See, when you have things in common, it's like, hey, let's do this. Yeah, great idea. Hey, let's do that. Yeah, great idea. Let's do that. I don't know. It's and you got to convince the person. That means you really are not on the same page. So it just goes back to what the prophet said. Too much. The Reverend was saying too much compromise in marriage isn't good, and the prophet said to marry those closest to you, who have the closest things in life that resemble yours, and you'll get along. And don't buy into all this opposites attract type stuff. The prophet said, marry those closest to you, those who are more similar than different. Mujahideen?
Yeah, that's a real thing, because I'm trying to marry the closest sister to me. And the reality is, what you just stated is that, that might be a truth bomb too to some people. We're not going to go there. The reality is that marriage as an institution, right, is not just a foundational thing for a community, but also for individuals. Like you have to be one with yourself. Like the first marriage is internal. And so like your mind, your heart, your whole life has to be complete before you have to be your 100% half, your whole self, to even be a half of someone else, right? And so like the reality of, this work itself, we hear a lot about marriage and divorce in the Muslim community, the Muslim African American community, the American community. It's all environmental. And it is also how we respond in an environment. And so if we could, and we say it all the time, we say, we ask Allah for protection from shaitan, and we do all these acts of goodness to keep, our mind focused and our attitude right. But then there's the reality, right? And so struggling with the reality is also a part of marriage, not just marriage itself, but marriage with someone else. And so there's definitely a struggle that a lot of us have not been even willing to accept. So just the fact of accepting it is almost like 50%, right, of reaching the goal. And so I encourage those who've been married or who've never been married, as I tell, my colleagues are like, stay in the work. That's what got me through my situation. Most people might not know that either. Like, being divorced and trying to continue the work that the obligation has been on me as an individual from my upbringing. It's sister like Sister Marcia, Brother Bilal, and yourself, and others that I'm associated with that allow me to keep being who I am myself, right? Because I can't lose myself and try to jump on something else. And so with marriage and Al-Islam and marriage and life and human life, you have to be yourself. And that's what I appreciate in my process is that, the sister I'm talking to, she always say, like, don't change who you are, be who you are. Because that's, if I want to marry someone, I want to marry who you are. You don't have to change who you are just to try to appease, like you said, making all them compromise, trying to appease somebody. And then when it's go time, now it's like, oh, all this now is a big surprise, right? So let's just be real with the situation. Inshallah, this coming year, we're going to have some planning, some strategies, some shows around marriage and the importance of relationships also, right? Because our marriage affects every other relationship in our life. If what Ahmed just presented as the purpose of marriage as the foundation for our community life, then everything that we touch is going to be affected by how our relationships are. And so we want better relationships in our community life. We got to have better marriages and better family life.
Alhamdulillah. I want to say too that you never really know who you are.
I need all the du'as. I need some more du'as. Give me some more du'as.
It works for the believers, but you'll never really know who you are until you get married. That's another important thing about marriage. You will never find out who you are. You could sit in a cave all day and meditate. You're never going to find out who you really are until you get married, because Allah says in the Quran that everything He created exists in pairs. Allah is the only one that exists by Himself. So everything else is dependent upon each other. So if you want to find out who you are, you're that half person, but you're not that whole person until you get married. Because there's nothing like having your wife or your husband like critiquing you, because this might be you, like everyone has shortcomings, what I'm saying. So your wife in particular will help you to better and improve yourself. You might be scraggly. Your wife won't let you go outside the house that way. You might be too angry or something, but you don't think I'm saying this is for this reason. Don't think that you're ever I'm going to get myself together, get myself right, then I'm going to get married. Spend some time on that, but you're never going to be like complete. In fact, it's like Imam Muhammad said one time. He said, he was talking about brothers or people who feel like, who are hesitant to go to the masjid because they have sin on them. It's like, I'm too dirty. I can't go on that. I'm going to get myself clean. Then I'm going to go to the masjid. He said that's backward thinking. He said, the masjid is the soap and water. So how are you going to clean yourself outside of the soap and water? So we spend some time figuring out who we are, but if you got past a year and you're not, unless you have, again, trauma where you literally have to take medication and so on and so forth. But if you're still in the mental capacity to get married, then don't delay that year after year after year after year after year, because you're really only getting worse. Because one of the Greek terms for idiot comes from idios, which means to be alone. So you become, that's how they define an idiot. You became an idiot because you didn't have social relationships. You become abnormal. So marriage is critical. And as I said, our religion says marriage is half our religion. And Imam Muhammad explained that, giving some tafsir, saying he said, and I believe the scholars would agree with me, that marriage, the obligation of marriage, that marriage is fulfilling our social responsibilities. So until you get married, I don't care. I'm a single dude. Because I see some brothers, Muslim brothers, doing things online. But where's your wife? Because you show you have the material, you have the money, but where's your wife? Where's your Muslim wife? Let me correct that. Where's your Muslim life? Because you look abnormal showing such activities that you're doing and places you're going, cars you're driving, clothes you're wearing as a Muslim man, but never with a wife. That's not good. That's a bad example. You should do that, keep that private until you can show that you're doing this with a wife or with a husband. Same thing for sisters. Don't be, I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there, I'm traveling to Dubai, I'm going to Mexico. Look at us on this trip. Where's your husband? Marriage is very serious in Islam. This is not a religion for single people. Yes, so in conclusion, I don't want to.
No, that's a real thing. One more last thing. You know how they say,
you scared some people. No, it's truth serum, right?
Yeah. I mean,
the point you made about waiting long. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. And I'm the type of person, like, I can have these kinds of conversations all day long, whether it's for me, like whether the content of the conversation is for me or against me. I can have this kind of conversation all day long. But there is a lot of truth in that, the longer time you take, it's harder to just jump back in, because that independence, sometimes that feel a little good.
The thing is, you become, the reality is, and I've seen it, I'm saying from personal experience, meaning what I've witnessed, you see brothers and sisters, men and women, the longer you remain single, the stranger you become. And this isn't any condemnation on brothers and sisters who are single, because sometimes it's not really it's not like it's the choice of some brothers and sisters, but it's like that's just we're not meant to be alone. Only Allah is meant to be alone. That's it. We depend on everything in creation. There's carbon, like we breathe out carbon dioxide, we take in oxygen. If we have that whole symbiotic relationship with creation, that's just who we are. So, but this society, again, it just tells people so much. Single life, don't get married. But I'm thankful to Allah that there are a lot more shows and what do you call them? Influencers that are dispelling the notion of single life, but in particular for women, but and for men, the whole idea like being not productive and then expecting to be married. But a lot of the shows that are creeping up by influencers that are really speaking against this mentality, in particularly in the African American community, but in general in the society. So it's like what the Imam said: goodness is on the rise. So unless to conclude, I'll let each of you leave the last comment before we close out. This is something you want to say and tell the audience before you go. Have some words to say.
We were thankful that you invited us on New Africa Talks on New Freedom Exchange. We asked all of you who have been following us over the last year and a half or so, those of you who were in support of the Muslim Journal, Time to Be Grateful. We received the Muslim Legacy Award. We are honored to receive that, and we know that that's a real thing for our community, to keep the bonds of our history, of our pioneers, and know that their work was not in vain. And so everything that we do and we try to do for our team is not just for us, it's also for our community, is our responsibility. So I'm just thankful to be, with like-minded individuals, my team especially, and everyone else.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for having us as guests on New Africa Talks today. I really appreciate the conversation. This is healthy conversation amongst family. And so, sometimes we say things that, don't necessarily always feel like, butterflies and rainbows and all ushy gushy, but sometimes we just need to hear it. So I appreciate the conversation. I thank you all for tuning in and keeping an open mind and heart to the discussion. And in your respective communities, I just, I always do a call out to the people, in our respective communities. I just say, let's do the work. Let's get it done. Let's be, better. We're going into the new year, right? So we'll use that as a marker. Let's be better next year than we are this year. Let's, we talked about business and we talked about education. We talked about marriage. We talked about these things because these are areas in our community where we're looking to create models, and we have the resources, both human and otherwise. We have the resources. We've just got to pull them together and connect like minds together and be conscious of the company we keep and where we focus our efforts. So I just encourage you all to do that wherever you are, so that we could look around and see New Africa.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, thank you to Brother Ahmed, Sabri, Brother Hakeem, and all of the those who work to put on New Africa Intelligentsia for the invitation to the platform. Greatly appreciate it. I would just say, keep the faith and do and do the work. Continue to do the work. It is plenty of opportunities out here to for us to expand our horizons as a community. We have been blessed. Do not forget our blessing. And please do not forget our blessing, because to go through the experience that we have went through and the evolution that we went through as a people, as a community, to get to this juncture, it's a major blessing and a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we do not want to forget it. And how do we not forget it? How do we not forget it? By preserving it. Number one, preservation, archiving, putting it in writing, putting it in book form, and establishing the model communities that have been set out for us to establish and work together as a team in order to do it. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh, tune in tomorrow real quick. Sorry, we got a plug. Tomorrow we'll be on again New Freedom Exchange. We'll be doing the Unified Talim. I think that's 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we'll expand a little more from what we discussed today.
Shukran, thank you. I want to say first, again, thank you all for agreeing to be guests on this program. Your contributions were very much appreciated. I'm sure the listening audience got something from it, learning from it, and just seeing young people, young Muslims, young African Americans doing something is encouragement in itself. And I know for the pioneers, they're happy, seeing that what they worked for wasn't like a waste of time. I want to say that for the next year, 2022, some things that we should be doing is, because our religion says, I remember Imam Muhammad saying this. He said that no religion puts more emphasis on family than Al-Islam. So our religion puts more emphasis on family than any other religion. So going along with the imams in our community who've been saying these things over the years, family should be meeting with each other, and because of the times we live in. Whatever you're doing, meet and plan about it. Family. This is the time for family to become closer to each other, to address issues within your family. And I'm not talking about just your immediate family, husband, wife, and children. I'm talking about siblings. I'm talking about cousins, uncles, aunts, but meet and also in order to establish generational wealth for several reasons. In fact, the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him, he talked about if you will not be wealthy. I'll find it when they share that. Those who don't keep family ties, Allah will not bless you with wealth. You see, we have to keep wealth if we want to grow have family relations. Keep the strong ties of family. And sometimes, like the Dr. Phil said, he said, when sometimes they were dealing with family issues, he said, somebody, and the end of the show, he said, like, somebody has to be the hero. I mean, somebody had to step out on the ledge and say, okay, I'm going to be the first to open the doors of communication, or I'm going to be the first to do this so that we can start having a better family life. So I want to say that. Keep your families, as Allah says, save yourself and your family from a fire which fuels men and stone. So get, in the next year, if you can, keep stronger family ties. That's one thing. Meet with, for the men, for the brothers, meet with each other. And I'm talking about for the establishment of the community, for the economic establishment, for the security of the community. We need the brothers to meet by themselves in the different categories. If it's for security, meet for that reason. If it's for business, meet for that reason. And as always, as Imam Muhammad said, work with like minds. Don't just work with anybody. Like say, Imam said, work together. No, everybody doesn't fit in the same group. Work with like minds. Like minds meaning agreeable minds. And last, on that same note, in terms of kind of like a mantra for 2022, I'd say just came to my mind. It's on you in 2022. It's on you. Don't look somewhere else and hey, it's on you. You got to do it. 2022, it's on you. So in conclusion, let's close out with dua. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wassalamun ala al-mursaleen alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ameen. Shukran. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Assalamu Alaikum. Thank you.
Alaikum.